What if Harry Potter never lived in a cupboard under the stairs? What if he never felt the sting of the Dursleys' cruelty, never wondered why strange things happened around him, never spent a single day not knowing he was loved? Today, we're exploring one of the most fascinating alternate timelines in the Harry Potter universe. What if Sirius Black took Harry Potter as a baby? To understand how dramatically this would change everything, we need to go back to that fateful night in Godric's Hollow. October 31st, 1981. Voldemort has just been destroyed by his own rebounding curse. James and Lily Potter lie dead. Little Harry sits crying in his crib, marked by a lightning bolt scar that will define the rest of his life. In the canonical timeline, Hagrid arrives on Dumbledore's orders and takes Harry away to Privet Drive, to a life of neglect and abuse. But what if someone else got there first? Sirius Black, secret keeper in everyone's eyes, though we know the truth was different, arrives at the ruined cottage. He's devastated. His best friends are dead. The brother he chose, James Potter, gone. Lily, who treated him like family, murdered. And there's Harry, somehow alive, somehow having survived what no one else ever had. In the original story, Sirius makes a choice that haunts him for 12 years. He lends Hagrid his flying motorcycle and goes after Peter Pettigrew, seeking revenge, seeking justice, seeking anything to make sense of this nightmare. That choice leads him to Azkaban, to Dementors, to 12 years of torture for a crime he didn't commit. But what if grief and rage weren't the only emotions driving him that night? What if, in that moment, holding his godson, Sirius remembered the promise he made? The promise to protect Harry, to be there for him if anything ever happened to James and Lily. What if that promise, that love, proved stronger than vengeance? Picture this. Sirius stands in the ruins of the Potter house, Harry in his arms, and he makes a different choice. He knows Peter betrayed them. He knows Peter is the real secret keeper. The rage is still there, burning in his chest, but so is something else. Responsibility, love, the weight of being the last person who can protect this child. And Sirius realizes something crucial. If he goes after Peter now, what happens to Harry? Harry goes to the Dursleys. Harry goes to people who hated Lily, who hated magic, who would never understand what this child needs. Harry goes to a life that James and Lily would never have wanted for him. So Sirius makes a different choice. He holds Harry closer, turns away from the path of revenge, and disapparates. But where does he go? This is where our alternate timeline branches into two possible paths, and both are fascinating. In the first scenario, Sirius goes straight to the Ministry. He demands Veritaserum. He demands a trial. He submits to every test they can throw at him. With Voldemort gone and the wizarding world in chaos, maybe, just maybe, someone listens. Maybe Barty Crouch Sr., in his zealous pursuit of Death Eaters, sees an opportunity to prove the system works. Maybe Dumbledore intervenes, though we have to wonder why he didn't in the original timeline. Maybe Sirius gets lucky and finds someone who actually cares about justice rather than appearances. Under Veritaserum, the truth comes out. Sirius wasn't the secret keeper. Peter Pettigrew was. They switched at the last moment. Peter betrayed the Potters. Peter is the traitor. And just like that, everything changes. Sirius Black is a free man. Harry Potter has a guardian who loves him. The wizarding world has one more mystery to puzzle over, but this time, an innocent man doesn't rot in Azkaban for 12 years. But there's a second scenario, and honestly, it might be more likely given Sirius's character and the chaos of that night. What if Sirius doesn't trust the system? What if he knows in his gut that no one will believe him? The Potters are dead. Voldemort is gone. Someone needs to pay. And Sirius Black, known rebel, known rule breaker, former member of the most notorious pureblood family in Britain. He's the perfect scapegoat. So instead of turning himself in, Sirius runs. He takes Harry and disappears into the night. Maybe he goes to Remus Lupin first, though Remus might be too shocked, too grief-stricken, too suspicious to help immediately. Maybe he goes to the continent, to France or Spain or somewhere the Ministry's reach doesn't extend so easily. Maybe he even goes further, to America or Asia, anywhere that isn't Britain. Living on the run with a baby isn't easy. Sirius has money. The Black family fortune is his, despite his estrangement, or at least a portion of it. He has magical skills. He's an animagus, which gives him a huge advantage in staying hidden. But he also has a crying infant who needs care, who needs stability, who needs things Sirius barely knows how to provide. This is a man who spent his adolescence rebelling against his family, his young adulthood fighting a war, and now he's suddenly a single father to a traumatized 1-year-old. It's not ideal. It's messy and complicated and difficult, but it's also filled with love in a way Harry's canonical childhood never was. Let's explore the first path more deeply, where Sirius proves his innocence and raises Harry in Britain. Imagine Harry Potter growing up in Grimmauld Place. Yes, that creaky old townhouse with the screaming portrait of Walburga Black and the house elf who hates everyone. Sirius hates that place, we know he does, but it's safe. It's under the Fidelius charm, it's his legally, and more importantly, it can be changed. Sirius, freed from Azkaban's fate, has energy and motivation he didn't have in the canonical timeline. He tears through that house like a hurricane. Down comes every dark artifact. Out goes every reminder of his toxic family. Creature might resist, but even Creature can't stand against a determined Sirius who has legal authority and, more importantly, a child to protect. That house transforms. It becomes bright, warm, filled with laughter instead of screams. The portrait of Walburga might still yell, but Sirius teaches Harry to yell back, to not fear the ghosts of the past. Harry grows up knowing he's a wizard from the very start. There's no revelation at age 11, no shocking discovery. Magic is just part of life. He sees Sirius transform into a dog and thinks it's the best thing ever. He plays with a wand that shoots harmless sparks. He grows up on stories about his parents, real stories, told by someone who actually knew them. James Potter isn't just a name or a face in a photograph. He's Dad, the best friend Sirius ever had, the brother he chose. He's Prongs, the leader of the Marauders, the boy who became a man and died protecting his family. Lily Potter isn't just the mother who saved him. She's Mum, the brilliant witch who could argue Sirius under the table, who made James become a better person, who loved so fiercely that it literally saved her son's life. And here's something crucial. Harry grows up knowing he's famous, but understanding why. Sirius doesn't hide the truth. He doesn't coddle Harry or pretend the world is different than it is. Yes, you're famous, Harry. Yes, people call you the boy who lived. Yes, they're going to stare and whisper and treat you differently. But here's what matters. Here's what you need to remember. You're Harry. You're my godson. You're James and Lily's boy. You're not a celebrity or a symbol or a savior. You're a kid, and you deserve to be a kid, and anyone who can't see that can sod off. This changes Harry's entire personality. Canon Harry is humble to a fault, often uncomfortable with attention, burdened by survivor's guilt and the weight of expectations. This Harry grows up confident. Not arrogant, because Sirius, for all his flaws, would never raise an arrogant child. He knew too many of those growing up. But confident, secure in who he is. Unafraid to question authority, because Sirius questions authority every single day. This Harry speaks his mind. This Harry doesn't automatically defer to adults. This Harry has been raised by someone who taught him that rules matter, but people matter more. Let's talk about Remus Lupin, because there's no way Sirius raises Harry alone. In the canonical timeline, Remus believes Sirius betrayed the Potters. He's alone, grief-stricken, impoverished, dealing with lycanthropy and survivor's guilt. But in this timeline, once Sirius's innocence is proven, everything changes. Remus has his last remaining friend back. More than that, he has family. Because Sirius doesn't just raise Harry, he brings Remus into it. Uncle Moony becomes a fixture in Harry's life. Remus is there for bedtime stories, for teaching moments, for when Sirius's impulsiveness needs a calming influence. And Remus, having something to live for again, having people who need him, thrives in a way he never did in canon. Harry grows up with two very different role models. Sirius teaches him to be brave, to question everything, to never back down from what's right even when it's hard. Remus teaches him to be kind, to think before acting, to understand that not everything is black and white. Together, they give Harry a balanced upbringing that's light years ahead of what the Dursleys provided. Sure, Sirius forgets to make Harry eat vegetables sometimes. Sure, Remus is too soft and lets Harry get away with things he shouldn't. But they love him. They're there for him. And that makes all the difference. Now, what about the blood protection? This is a crucial magical element we can't ignore. In canon, Dumbledore places Harry with the Dursleys specifically because Lily's sacrifice created a blood protection that could be invoked through her sister Petunia. As long as Harry called Privet Drive home, Voldemort couldn't touch him. It's powerful magic, and it's the reason Dumbledore insists Harry return every summer. But in this timeline, that protection doesn't exist. Harry never goes to the Dursleys. Petunia never takes him in. So what happens? This is where we need to consider Dumbledore's response. In canon, Dumbledore is willing to sacrifice Harry's happiness for his safety. He knows the Dursleys are terrible people. He knows Harry suffers there. but the protection matters more. In this alternate timeline, Dumbledore faces a dilemma. Does he fight Sirius for custody, arguing that the blood protection is too important to lose? Or does he accept that Sirius won't give up Harry and instead focus on alternative protections? I think Dumbledore would be pragmatic. He's not cruel for cruelty's sake. If Sirius proves his innocence and has legal custody, Dumbledore would have a hard time arguing against it, especially since Sirius is Harry's godfather, and James and Lily chose him for that role. Instead, Dumbledore would likely work with Sirius to create different protections. The Fidelius charm on Grimmauld Place is a start. Wards, protective enchantments, maybe even some objects imbued with protective magic. It's not the same as the blood protection, but it's not nothing either. And here's the thing. Voldemort is gone. In this timeline, he's been destroyed just like in canon. His body is gone. His followers are scattered or imprisoned. The immediate threat doesn't exist. Yes, Dumbledore knows Voldemort will return someday. He suspects the Horcruxes, though he doesn't know for certain yet. But that's a future problem. For now, Harry is safe enough with Sirius, and Dumbledore has to accept that. Let's jump forward to Harry's childhood. He doesn't go to Muggle primary school. Instead, Sirius either teaches him at home or arranges for tutors. There's a small community of magical children whose parents don't want them educated in Muggle schools, and Harry becomes part of that world. Maybe he meets Neville Longbottom earlier. Maybe he becomes friends with Susan Bones or Hannah Abbott. These aren't the friendships that define his Hogwarts years in canon, but they give him a social foundation he never had at Privet Drive. Harry learns to read with books about magic. He learns arithmetic alongside basic numerology. He grows up bilingual in a sense, fluent in both Muggle and magical culture because Sirius, despite his pure-blood upbringing, always rejected that supremacist nonsense. Harry watches television and goes to Muggle movies, but he also watches Quidditch matches and visits Diagon Alley regularly. He's not isolated like Canon Harry, but he's also not fully integrated into either world. He's something in between, something unique. And then there's the matter of trauma. Canon Harry carries deep psychological scars from his childhood. Neglect, abuse, being told he's worthless and freakish for 11 years. That doesn't just go away. It shapes who he is, makes him desperate for love and belonging, makes him willing to sacrifice himself because he doesn't truly value his own life the way he should. This Harry doesn't have that trauma. He's been loved from day one. He's been told he matters, that his parents died protecting him because he was precious to them, that he's worth protecting and cherishing. This creates a fundamentally different person. This Harry is happier. He's more emotionally stable. He doesn't have the same desperate need to prove himself or to save everyone. That might sound like a good thing, and in many ways it is. But it also means he's less driven. Canon Harry becomes a hero partly because he has to, partly because he's been shaped by suffering. This Harry might not have that same fire. He might be more content to be normal, to let others handle the problems. Or maybe not. Maybe raised by Sirius Black, he has a different kind of fire, a rebellious streak, a desire to fight injustice not because he's personally suffered, but because it's wrong. That could be even more powerful. Now let's talk about the alternative scenario where Sirius goes on the run. This creates a very different childhood for Harry, but one that's equally fascinating. Imagine Harry Potter growing up in a small village in the south of France. Sirius has disguised himself, changed his appearance slightly, maybe uses a different name. Harry grows up speaking French and English, eating croissants and pain au chocolat, playing in lavender fields. He knows he's magical, but he doesn't know he's famous. Sirius keeps that from him, at least for a while. Better to let Harry have a normal childhood, or as normal as possible when your guardian is a wanted fugitive. Sirius can't stay in one place too long. Every few years they move. France, then Spain, then maybe Italy or Greece. Harry grows up as a nomad, never putting down roots, never having a permanent home. It's not ideal. He struggles to make friends because he knows they'll be leaving soon. He becomes self-reliant, maybe a bit lonely, but also adaptable. He learns languages easily. He becomes comfortable with change. And through it all, Sirius is there. Not a perfect parent, not even close, but a loving one. Someone who would die for Harry without a second thought, and who makes sure Harry knows it every single day. Remus still appears in this timeline, but differently. Maybe he visits when he can, when it's safe. Maybe Sirius sends him letters through untraceable means. Maybe Remus doesn't know where they are for years, until one day Sirius decides the statute of limitations has passed, or that enough time has gone by that no one's actively looking anymore. When they reunite, it's emotional and complicated and beautiful. Uncle Mooney enters Harry's life and everything gets a little more stable, a little more secure. But here's the question that haunts this scenario. What about Hogwarts? In canon, Harry receives his Hogwarts letter at age 11 and his life changes forever. But if Sirius is on the run with Harry, if they're living abroad under false identities, does that letter ever come? Hogwarts is in Britain. Sirius is wanted in Britain. Can he really risk bringing Harry back? This is where Sirius faces an impossible choice. He wants Harry to have a magical education. He wants Harry to experience Hogwarts the way he and James did, to find friendships and adventures and knowledge. But the risk is enormous. The moment Harry Potter shows up at Hogwarts, questions will be asked. Where has he been? Who's been raising him? And any investigation leads straight back to Sirius. So does Sirius deny Harry Hogwarts? Does he try to enroll him in Beauxbatons or Durmstrang instead, foreign schools where his identity might be safer? Or does he take the risk? I think Sirius takes the risk. He's a Gryffindor through and through. He's impulsive and brave and sometimes foolish. And he'd rather face Azkaban than deny Harry his birthright. So when Harry turns 11, they return to Britain. Maybe Sirius turns himself in first, demanding a trial, finally ready to clear his name. Maybe he stays hidden but uses his animagus form to stay close to Harry. Either way, Harry goes to Hogwarts. And that's where everything changes. Let's focus on the version where Sirius is proven innocent and Harry grows up openly in Britain, because that gives us the most interesting Hogwarts timeline. Harry Potter arrives at King's Cross Station on September 1st, accompanied by Sirius Black. He's not a confused 11-year-old being rescued from terrible relatives. He's a confident kid who knows exactly what to expect, whose guardian has told him everything about Hogwarts, who's excited but not overwhelmed. He says goodbye to Sirius, who transforms into a dog and gives him a slobbery kiss just to embarrass him, and boards the train. On the Hogwarts Express, Harry's experience is completely different. He's still famous. People still stare and whisper. But Harry's been famous his whole life. He knows how to handle it. When someone asks to see his scar, he might show it, or he might tell them to mind their own business, depending on how they ask. He's not desperate for friends like Canon Harry was. He's open to friendship, but he's not going to attach himself to the first person who's nice to him. Does he still meet Ron Weasley? Maybe, but the dynamic is different. Ron is still poor, still insecure about his place as the youngest son in a large family. But Harry isn't this mysterious figure who needs everything explained. Harry might still like Ron, might find his humor and his honesty refreshing. But would they become best friends? That's less certain. The shared experience of being outcasts, which bonded them in canon, doesn't exist here. What about Hermione Granger? In canon, the troll incident on Halloween creates the trio. But what if that doesn't happen? What if Harry doesn't feel the same need to save Hermione because he's not carrying the same savior complex? Or what if he does, but for different reasons? Sirius taught him to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Sirius taught him that bravery means acting even when you're scared. So maybe Harry still saves Hermione, but it's a choice based on values rather than instinct. The sorting is fascinating to consider. Canon Harry chooses Gryffindor over Slytherin because he's afraid of what Slytherin represents. He spent 11 years being told he's bad and wrong and freakish, and Slytherin feels like confirmation of that. But this Harry doesn't have that fear. Sirius was a Gryffindor, sure, but Sirius also taught Harry that houses don't define you. Some of the bravest people Sirius knew were Hufflepuffs. Some of the cleverest were Ravenclaws. And yes, Slytherin produced a lot of dark wizards, but it also produced clever, ambitious people who achieved great things. So when the sorting hat touches Harry's head, what does it say? The hat still sees courage. That's inherent to who Harry is, both in his nature and his nurture. But it also sees ambition now. Not the desperate ambition of someone who has nothing, but the healthy ambition of someone who wants to make a difference. It sees cleverness too, because Sirius encouraged Harry to question everything, to think critically. And it might even see loyalty, the fierce loyalty to the people Harry loves. The hat could genuinely place Harry in any house. For the sake of our timeline, let's say Harry still goes to Gryffindor, but he does it confidently, not out of fear. He chooses Gryffindor because that's where his father was, where Sirius was, and because courage is the value he holds highest. But it's a close call. In Gryffindor Tower, Harry settles in quickly. He makes friends not just with Ron, but with several people. Dean Thomas, Seamus Finnegan, even some of the girls like Lavender and Parvati. He's charismatic in a way Canon Harry never was, not because he tries to be, but because confidence is attractive. People gravitate toward him. This makes things both easier and harder. Easier because Harry's not isolated and lonely. Harder because jealousy becomes a factor. People wonder why Harry Potter gets to be so confident, so happy, when he's already famous and special. Classes are interesting. Harry isn't naturally talented at magic the way Hermione is, but he's not starting from zero either. Sirius taught him some things, basic theory and simple spells. Harry might already know how to levitate objects or cast a basic lumos. This puts him ahead of most Muggleborns and even some purebloods whose parents were more strict about underage magic. Professors notice. McGonagall is pleased but wary, wondering if Harry will become arrogant. Flitwick is delighted. Snape is complicated. Severus Snape hates Sirius Black. That hasn't changed. The Marauders tormented him throughout his school years, and Sirius nearly got him killed in the Shrieking Shack incident. James saved him, but the damage was done. In canon, Snape transfers all his hatred onto Harry, seeing James in every expression, every gesture. But this Harry wasn't raised by Muggles who broke him down. This Harry was raised by Sirius. That's almost worse in Snape's mind. So Snape is, if anything, even more hostile toward Harry than in canon. Every potion that bubbles wrong, every question Harry gets right, every time Harry smirks or jokes or shows a hint of Sirius's personality, Snape's hatred grows. But here's the difference. This Harry has a guardian who will fight for him. In canon, the Dursleys didn't care if Snape was unfair. They didn't care about anything related to magic. But Sirius? Sirius finds out Snape is being unreasonably harsh, and he storms up to Hogwarts demanding a meeting. The confrontation between Sirius and Snape would be explosive. Years of resentment and hatred bubbling up. Dumbledore has to mediate, and ultimately, he probably reminds both of them that Harry's education is more important than their grudges. Snape remains cold toward Harry, but he has to rein in the most overt abuse because Sirius is watching. And Sirius will absolutely pull Harry out of Hogwarts if he thinks his godson is being mistreated. The first-year adventure with the Philosopher's Stone still happens, but differently. Voldemort is still attached to Quirrell. Voldemort still wants the stone, but does Harry get involved? In canon, Harry stumbles into it because he's trying to protect the stone, convinced that Snape is after it. But this Harry might be less suspicious. He knows Snape hates him, but Sirius explained that Snape and the Marauders had a bad history. It's personal, not sinister, so Harry might not jump to conclusions about Snape being evil, but Harry would still notice something wrong. He's observant, raised by someone who taught him to trust his instincts. When Quirrell starts acting strangely, when Harry's scar hurts around him, Harry notices. Maybe he tells Sirius and Sirius investigates. Or maybe Harry, with friends backing him up, investigates himself. Either way, the confrontation happens. Harry faces Quirrell and Voldemort. The love protection from his mother still works. Voldemort can't touch him. But psychologically, this encounter is different. Canon Harry was willing to die to protect the stone. This Harry might be braver in a different way, more strategic, more willing to call for help because he's not used to being alone. When Sirius finds out Harry nearly died, he's furious. Not at Harry, at Dumbledore. What kind of school lets a troll in? What kind of headmaster allows a teacher possessed by the darkest wizard in history to interact with students? This is where Sirius and Dumbledore's relationship becomes strained. Dumbledore believes in the greater good, in letting Harry face challenges to prepare him for his destiny. Sirius believes in protecting Harry, full stop. These philosophies clash. Sirius demands better security, better protections. Dumbledore tries to explain that Harry needs to learn to face danger. Sirius tells Dumbledore exactly where he can shove that philosophy. It's tense, it's messy, and it sets the tone for years to come. Second year brings the Chamber of Secrets. In canon, Harry hears the basilisk in the walls and thinks he's going mad. He worries he's becoming like Voldemort. But this Harry has a different internal landscape. He's not plagued by insecurity and self-doubt. When he hears the voice, he's concerned, but he tells people about it. He tells Hermione and Ron, if they're his friends. He tells Sirius in a letter, and Sirius, hearing that his godson is hearing voices, immediately researches. He might figure out it's a snake earlier. He might warn Harry about basilisks. This gives Harry crucial information that changes how second year unfolds. Gilderoy Lockhart is still a fraud, and Harry still sees through him. But Harry doesn't hero worship anyone, so he's not disappointed, just amused. When students start getting petrified, Harry still wants to help. That's fundamental to who he is. But he's more methodical about it, less reactive. The whole Tom Riddle's diary plotline is fascinating because Harry, raised by Sirius, has been warned extensively about dark magic. Sirius would have told him about Horcruxes, or at least about objects that can possess you. So when Harry finds a diary that writes back, alarm bells go off immediately. Does Harry still get possessed? Maybe, because Tom Riddle is clever and manipulative. Or maybe Harry is cautious enough to avoid it. Let's say Ginny Weasley still gets possessed because this timeline doesn't change her trauma and vulnerability. Harry, realizing what's happening, might figure it out faster. He might save Ginny with less personal danger because he's not walking into the chamber blind. He still faces the basilisk, still destroys the diary, but the whole experience is less traumatic because Harry isn't carrying the weight of the world alone. Third year is where things get really interesting because in canon, this is when Sirius escapes from Azkaban and the whole truth starts coming out. But in our timeline, there's no escape because Sirius was never imprisoned. So what happens in third year? Remus Lupin still becomes the defense against the dark arts professor because Dumbledore trusts him and wants to give him a chance. But now Remus isn't the sad, isolated figure he was in canon. He's Uncle Moony, who Harry adores. Harry is thrilled to have Remus at Hogwarts. Peter Pettigrew is still hiding as Scabbers, living with the Weasley family. This is the one major loose end in our alternate timeline. Sirius never had his confrontation with Peter. Peter never got exposed. So he's been living as a rat for 12 years, slowly gathering information, waiting for the moment Voldemort returns. This is dangerous. This is a ticking time bomb, and it has to go off eventually. Maybe it happens in third year. Maybe Peter, hearing rumors that Voldemort is gathering strength, decides to flee and find his master. He escapes from Ron's possession, and suddenly there's a mystery. Where did Scabbers go? Why would a rat that's been in the family for 12 years suddenly run away? Harry, with his investigative instincts and his knowledge of his parents' history, might make the connection. He knows Peter Pettigrew was the real secret keeper. He knows Peter is probably alive somewhere. Could Scabbers have been Peter all along? The revelation would be explosive. If Peter is caught, he's given Veritaserum, and the whole truth comes out for a second time. This vindicates Sirius publicly, proves that everything he's been saying for years is true. Peter goes to Azkaban where he belongs, and Harry has closure about his parents' deaths. The real traitor is punished. Justice, delayed but not denied, finally comes. But what if Peter escapes? What if he makes it back to Voldemort and helps him return even earlier? This creates a darker timeline where Voldemort comes back in Harry's third year instead of his fourth. That's terrifying because Harry is younger, less prepared, less skilled. But he also has Sirius active and free, which is a huge advantage. Sirius can fight openly, can rally the Order of the Phoenix early, can prepare for war. Let's continue with fourth year and the Triwizard Tournament. In canon, Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, and he's forced to compete. It's traumatic and dangerous and ultimately leads to Voldemort's return. But in this timeline, when Harry's name comes out, Sirius's reaction is immediate and furious. He doesn't care about magical contracts or binding agreements. His godson, who is underage, has been entered into a deadly tournament without permission. Sirius demands the Ministry investigate. He demands Dumbledore cancel Harry's participation. He makes noise loud and public about the danger. This might change things. The Ministry, embarrassed by the negative publicity, might try harder to find a loophole. Dumbledore, pressured by both Sirius and common sense, might search more diligently for a way to remove Harry from the tournament. Or maybe the magical contract is truly binding and Harry has to compete anyway. But even then, Harry has advantages he didn't have in canon. Sirius helps him prepare. Sirius trains him, drills him, makes sure Harry knows every spell and strategy he can think of. Remus helps too, teaching Harry advanced defense techniques. Harry enters the first task not terrified and alone, but prepared and supported. The tasks themselves might go similarly. Harry's inherent courage and cleverness carry him through, but the psychological impact is different. He's not dealing with isolation and accusations from his peers. This Harry has confidence and support. When Rita Skeeter writes nasty articles, Sirius fights back publicly. When other students turn on Harry, Harry's real friends stand by him because they know him better. The third task and the graveyard are where everything comes to a head. Voldemort's return happens similarly. Peter is there serving his master. Cedric still might die, a tragic loss that shakes Harry deeply. Harry still faces Voldemort in the graveyard. still witnesses the resurrection ritual. But when Harry escapes and brings back news of Voldemort's return, the response is different. Sirius believes him immediately and mobilizes. Dumbledore believes him and acts. The Order of the Phoenix reforms faster. The Ministry is still in denial, but the pressure from credible sources like Sirius Black and Dumbledore is harder to ignore. Fifth year, and the political battle with Umbridge would still happen. Fudge is still afraid of Dumbledore and refuses to believe Voldemort has returned. Umbridge still comes to Hogwarts as a Ministry plant. But Harry isn't suffering in silence. Every time Umbridge uses the blood quill on him, Harry tells Sirius. And Sirius goes ballistic. He files complaints. He threatens lawsuits. He makes Umbridge's life difficult at every turn. Umbridge might try to have Sirius arrested or silenced, but he's too clever, too well-connected, and too determined to protect Harry. The DA still forms, but with more adult support. Sirius might even help train them covertly. The Department of Mysteries is where Canon Sirius dies, falling through the veil during the battle with Death Eaters. It's one of the most traumatic moments in Harry's life, the moment he loses the only parent figure he'd ever known. But in our timeline, things are different. Maybe Sirius is more careful, more strategic, because he's not reckless in the same way. He spent 12 years in Azkaban and Canon, which broke him and made him desperate. In this timeline, he's been active and engaged, which might make him more cautious. Or maybe he's still serious, still brave to the point of recklessness, and the battle goes the same way. Let's consider both possibilities. If Sirius dies in the Department of Mysteries, Harry's grief is profound but different. He had 12 years with Sirius instead of just knowing him for a few. The loss is deeper, more personal, but Harry also has better coping mechanisms. He's not used to losing people. He might break down more completely, or he might hold it together better because he's emotionally healthier. Either way, Sirius's death galvanizes him. Harry becomes more determined to defeat Voldemort, to make Sirius's sacrifice mean something. But what if Sirius survives? What if, in this timeline, things go differently and Sirius doesn't fall through the veil? Harry still fights Voldemort, still gets possessed briefly, still experiences the trauma of that battle, but he doesn't lose Sirius. They go home together. They grieve for the others who died, and Sirius is there for 6th year and beyond, an active participant in the war. 6th year with Sirius alive changes everything. In canon, Harry spends 6th year dealing with grief, taking private lessons with Dumbledore about Voldemort's past, and navigating his first real romance with Ginny Weasley. But with Sirius alive and active, the dynamics shift dramatically. Dumbledore's quest to find and destroy Horcruxes becomes a shared mission. Sirius, who knew Voldemort as Tom Riddle through his family's dark connections, has insights that prove invaluable. He remembers stories, rumors, pieces of information that help narrow down where the Horcruxes might be hidden. When Dumbledore takes Harry into those pensive memories, exploring Voldemort's past, Sirius is there too. He sees the orphanage, the cave, the creation of Tom Riddle's obsession with immortality. And Sirius understands, perhaps better than Harry, what they're really facing. This isn't just about defeating a dark wizard. This is about destroying pieces of soul, about unraveling magic so dark that most wizards refuse to even speak of it. Sirius is scared, but he doesn't show it. He can't afford to. Harry needs him to be strong, to be confident, to be the person who believes they can win even when the odds are impossible. The hunt for Horcruxes begins earlier in this timeline. Dumbledore doesn't have to go alone to the cave because Sirius insists on coming. When they retrieve the locket, when Dumbledore drinks the potion, Sirius is there to help. Maybe this changes the outcome. Maybe Dumbledore doesn't get as badly injured. Maybe he survives the trip because having 2 people instead of 1 makes all the difference. Or maybe the curse is too powerful and Dumbledore is still dying, still has only months to live. Either way, Sirius knows about the Horcruxes now. He knows about Dumbledore's plan. And he knows that Harry is going to be at the center of this war, whether anyone wants him to be or not. Draco Malfoy's plot to kill Dumbledore still happens. Voldemort has given him an impossible task, hoping he'll fail, using him as punishment against Lucius. But in this timeline, with Sirius more involved in Hogwarts politics and security, the warning signs might be noticed earlier. Sirius doesn't trust any of the Malfoys. He grew up knowing that family, knowing their darkness. When he hears Draco is acting strangely, when he learns about the cursed necklace and the poisoned mead, he investigates. Maybe he confronts Draco directly, offering him a way out. Or maybe events unfold similarly, but when the Death Eaters invade Hogwarts, Sirius is there to fight. The tower scene where Snape kills Dumbledore is pivotal. In canon, Harry is frozen under his invisibility cloak, forced to watch helplessly. But what if Sirius is there too? What if Sirius sees Snape raise his wand, sees the green light of the killing curse, and reacts? Sirius might try to stop it. He might succeed and save Dumbledore, or he might fail and watch his old enemy murder the only person who truly believed in second chances. The betrayal would devastate him because despite everything, despite their disagreements and tensions, Sirius trusted Dumbledore. To see Snape, the person Dumbledore defended for years, be the one to kill him would break something in Sirius. Or maybe Dumbledore survives this timeline entirely. Maybe the combined efforts of Sirius and Harry change enough variables that Dumbledore makes it through 6th year. His hand is still cursed, he's still dying slowly, but he has more time. Time to train Harry properly, time to hunt more Horcruxes, time to prepare for the final battle in ways he never could in canon. This would fundamentally alter 7th year. But let's explore the version where Dumbledore still dies, because his death is such a crucial turning point in the original story. Harry is devastated. He's lost another father figure, another person who was supposed to guide him. But this time he has Sirius. He's not alone in his grief. They mourn together. They make plans together. And when Harry decides he's not returning to Hogwarts for 7th year, when he commits to hunting Horcruxes, Sirius's response is immediate. "I'm coming with you." No arguments, no discussions. We're doing this together. This changes the entire Horcrux hunt. In canon, Harry, Ron, and Hermione spend months wandering, camping, desperate and isolated. They make mistakes. They nearly die multiple times. Ron leaves out of frustration and fear. It's brutal and lonely and tests their friendship to breaking point. But with Sirius involved, the dynamic shifts. Sirius brings experience, magical knowledge, connections to the Order. He brings adult perspective and strategic thinking. He also brings his own trauma and impulsiveness, which creates different challenges. The trio becomes a quartet. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Sirius. They still have to stay hidden. Voldemort has taken over the Ministry. Muggleborns are being persecuted. Anyone associated with Harry is in danger. But Sirius knows how to hide. He spent years doing it. He teaches them proper concealment charms, how to move without leaving traces, how to think like someone being hunted. The camping is still miserable. The searching is still frustrating. But they're not quite as lost because Sirius fills some of the knowledge gaps. Finding the Horcruxes remains difficult. The locket is still in the Ministry, guarded by Umbridge. Breaking into the Ministry is just as dangerous with Sirius as without him. Maybe more so because he's a known Order member. But Sirius's animagus form helps. A dog can go places a person can't. They retrieve the locket, and destroying it is still agonizing. When the locket shows Ron his worst fears, his insecurities about being overshadowed by Harry, maybe it's different because Harry's confidence affects how Ron sees their relationship. Or maybe it's the same because Ron's insecurities are about more than just Harry. They're about being poor, being the youngest brother, feeling inadequate. The locket preys on that, and it still nearly destroys Ron's friendship with Harry. Sirius helps Ron through it. He understands what it's like to feel inferior, to come from a family where you're always compared to others. The Black family expected perfection. Sirius rebelled, but the scars remain. He talks to Ron about it, man to man, and Ron feels seen in a way he rarely does. This strengthens their group. It makes Ron's eventual return, if he still leaves, more meaningful. The Deathly Hallows become a complication. When they learn about the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Invisibility Cloak, Sirius's reaction is mixed. He knows the legend. He knows the dangers of seeking power like that. But he also knows Harry has the cloak, has always had it. And the temptation of the Resurrection Stone, the chance to bring back James and Lily even briefly, haunts him. Sirius lost everyone, his entire family, either to darkness or death. The idea that he could see them again, talk to them, even for a moment. It's seductive and dangerous. But Sirius also remembers what Dumbledore taught him about death. That it's not something to be feared or fought, but accepted. So when Harry becomes obsessed with the Hallows, when he starts prioritizing them over Horcruxes, Sirius pushes back. This creates tension. Harry feels like Sirius doesn't understand. Sirius feels like Harry is being reckless. They argue. It's ugly and painful because they both care so much. Eventually Hermione mediates, pointing out that they need to focus on Horcruxes first. The Hallows can wait, or they can be ignored entirely. What matters is stopping Voldemort. Godric's Hollow is emotionally devastating for both Harry and Sirius. Harry wants to see his parents' graves, to connect with them in some tangible way. Sirius has avoided Godric's Hollow for years. The memories are too painful, but he goes for Harry. They stand at the graves together. James Potter and Lily Potter, parents, friends, heroes. Sirius breaks down in a way Harry has rarely seen. All the grief he's carried for years pours out. Harry holds him. They cry together, and in that moment their bond deepens even further. They're not just godfather and godson. They're the last survivors of a family that was destroyed by Voldemort. They're in this together until the end. The ambush by Nagini still happens. The snake hidden in Bathilda Bagshot's body attacks. But with Sirius there, the fight is different. Sirius in his animagus form can battle a snake more effectively than humans can. He buys them time to escape. Maybe he gets bitten. Maybe he's injured protecting Harry. This raises the stakes and shows, once again, that Sirius would die for Harry without hesitation. Rescuing the others from Malfoy Manor still happens. Dobby still saves them, but the emotional weight is distributed differently. In canon, Harry feels responsible for every death, every injury. Here, Sirius shares that burden. When Dobby dies, they both mourn him. When they bury him, they do it together. And the words Harry speaks over the grave have more weight because he's learned from Sirius how to honor the fallen. The break-in at Gringotts requires careful planning. Getting the Horcrux from Bellatrix's vault is nearly impossible, but Sirius knows Bellatrix. She's his cousin, his family, even though he despises everything she represents. He knows how she thinks, what she values, how she operates. This knowledge helps them plan. The break-in is still chaotic and dangerous. The dragon escape is still necessary, but they succeed, and they destroy another Horcrux. They're getting closer. Returning to Hogwarts for the diadem is where everything accelerates. The castle is under Snape's control, under the Carrow's cruelty. The students are suffering. When Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Sirius sneak in, they find a school transformed by fear and oppression. The Room of Requirement still holds the diadem. The Fiendfire still nearly kills them. But having Sirius there means they have backup, someone who can help contain the magical fire or at least ensure everyone gets out alive. And then comes the revelation that Harry himself is a Horcrux. Dumbledore knew, Snape knew, and now Harry knows. He has to die for Voldemort to become mortal. This breaks Harry, everything he's been fighting for, everyone he's been trying to save, and the answer is his own death. In canon, Harry walks into the forest alone, using the Resurrection Stone to summon his parents and Sirius for comfort. But in this timeline, Sirius is alive. Sirius is right there, and Harry has to tell him. The conversation is heartbreaking. Harry explains about the Horcrux, about what needs to happen. Sirius refuses to accept it. There has to be another way. They'll find another way. But Harry knows there isn't. He's accepted it with a peace that Sirius can't understand. Harry has had a good life. He's been loved. He's had family. If his death means Voldemort can be defeated, if it means everyone else gets to live, then it's worth it. Sirius is sobbing, begging Harry not to go. But Harry has made his choice. So here's the impossible question. Does Sirius let Harry go? In canon, Sirius wasn't there to stop him. But now he is. Sirius could physically prevent Harry from walking into that forest. He could fight him, bind him, do anything to keep him alive. But would he? Sirius has always believed in choice. He rejected his family because they tried to control him. He became an animagus illegally because he chose to help his friend. He's lived his entire life making his own choices and respecting others' right to do the same. So despite every instinct screaming at him to stop Harry, Sirius lets him go. He doesn't walk with him because Harry asks him not to. He doesn't interfere because Harry has chosen this. But he watches from the shadows, his heart breaking, as Harry walks toward Voldemort. Harry's sacrifice plays out similarly. Voldemort casts the killing curse. Harry dies, or appears to. He meets Dumbledore in the strange limbo of King's Cross Station. They talk about choices and love and sacrifice, and Harry chooses to return because the job isn't finished. When he wakes in the forest, Narcissa still checks him and lies to Voldemort. Harry still plays dead as they return to Hogwarts, and Voldemort still declares Harry dead to break the Defender's spirits. But Sirius is there. Sirius sees Hagrid carrying what appears to be Harry's body, and something in Sirius breaks. The scream he releases is inhuman. It's the sound of a man who has lost everything again. He transforms into his dog form and charges at Voldemort, not caring about strategy or survival. He just wants to kill the monster who took his godson, The battle erupts into chaos. Sirius is fighting with a fury that terrifies even the Death Eaters. He's beyond reason, beyond tactics. He's pure rage and grief. And then Harry reveals himself. He's alive. He throws off the invisibility cloak and stands up. Sirius nearly collapses with relief. The battle continues, but now the defenders have hope again. Harry faces Voldemort one final time. The explanation about the Elder Wand, about wand allegiance, about how Voldemort's own actions led to his downfall, all happens as in canon. The killing curse rebounds. Voldemort dies for real this time, his soul too damaged to cling to the mortal world. And it's over. After 7 years, after so much death and destruction, it's finally over. The aftermath is bittersweet. They've won, but the cost was enormous. Fred Weasley still died. Lupin and Tonks still died, leaving their son an orphan. Colin Creevey, Lavender Brown, so many others. The survivors gather in the Great Hall. They're exhausted, injured, traumatized, but they're alive. And slowly the reality sets in. Voldemort is gone. The war is over. They can rebuild. Harry and Sirius sit together, not speaking, just being. They've been through hell together. They've faced death more times than anyone should. But they made it. They survived, and now they have to figure out what comes next. In canon, Harry had to build a new life from scratch. He found love with Ginny, became an Auror, eventually had children and tried to give them the childhood he never had. But this Harry has different challenges. He has Sirius. He has family. The trauma is still there, the nightmares, the survivor's guilt. But he's not alone in processing it. Sirius struggles too. He's been in war mode for so long that peace is disorienting. What does he do now? Who is he when he's not fighting, not protecting, not running? He has to rebuild his relationship with Remus, if Remus survived. He has to figure out how to exist in a world where Voldemort is gone, but the scars remain. And he has to help Harry do the same. The trials of the Death Eaters happen. Some escape. Some are imprisoned. Some are pardoned. Sirius attends every trial, watching as the people who served Voldemort face justice. It's cathartic and painful. When Bellatrix is sentenced, if she survived, Sirius feels nothing. She's not family. She stopped being family the moment she chose darkness. But when other members of the Black family tree are mentioned, cousins and distant relatives, he feels the loss of what might have been. An entire family corrupted by prejudice and hate. Harry's future is uncertain. Does he go back to Hogwarts for his 7th year? He missed so much schooling. But the idea of sitting in classes, learning about potions and transfiguration after everything he's been through feels absurd. Minerva McGonagall, now headmistress, offers him and the others special consideration. They can take their NEWTs based on their wartime experience. They can skip 7th year if they want. It's unprecedented, but these are unprecedented times. Harry decides not to return to Hogwarts as a student. He's done with school. Instead, he wants to help rebuild the wizarding world. Maybe he joins the Auror office, following in his father's imagined footsteps. Sirius has mixed feelings about this. The Aurors failed so badly during the war, were so easily corrupted by the Ministry. But he also understands that Harry needs purpose. He needs to feel like he's making a difference. So Sirius supports him, even offers to train him himself. Their relationship evolves. Harry is an adult now, legally and practically. He's been through war. He's killed, or at least defeated, the darkest wizard in history. The dynamic between him and Sirius shifts from parent-child to something more equal. They're family, always will be. But they're also partners who survived something terrible together. They understand each other in ways few people can. Romance enters Harry's life eventually. Maybe it's Ginny, like in canon, the girl who grew up brave and fierce and perfect for him. Or maybe, having grown up differently, Harry is attracted to someone else. Maybe Luna Lovegood, who sees the world so differently and helped Harry understand that not everything needs to make sense. Or maybe Hermione, his constant companion through the horrors of the Horcrux hunt. Whoever it is, Sirius is protective but respectful. He wants Harry to be happy. He wants Harry to have the love and family that James and Lily would have wanted for him. Sirius might find someone too. In canon, he died before he could rebuild his life. But here he has the chance. Maybe he reconnects with someone from his youth. Maybe he finds someone new, someone who understands the darkness he's carried and loves him anyway. Or maybe he stays single, content to focus on Harry and whatever other family they build together. Either way, he's healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. The question of children comes up eventually. When Harry has kids, when the next generation arrives, Sirius becomes Grandpa Padfoot. He's the cool grandfather who teaches them pranks and tells them stories about their grandparents. He's the one who transforms into a dog and lets them ride on his back. He's the one who makes sure they know they're loved, unconditionally, the way he loved Harry. And watching Harry become a parent, watching him break the cycle of abuse and neglect, fills Sirius with a pride so intense it hurts. But let's also consider the darker possibilities. What if Sirius didn't survive the war? What if in the final battle he died protecting Harry? What if his last act was throwing himself between Harry and a killing curse, dying so his godson could live? This creates a tragic mirror to Lily's sacrifice. Two parents, biological and chosen, both giving their lives for Harry. The grief would be devastating. Harry would have to process losing Sirius after everything they'd been through together. But he would also have the knowledge that Sirius's love saved him, just like his mother's love did. And that love would continue to protect him in ways both magical and emotional. In this version, Harry raises his children with Sirius's memory alive in every decision. He tells them stories about their grandfather Sirius, the man who could transform into a dog, who fought against darkness, who chose love over hate even when it was hard. He makes sure they know that family isn't just blood. Family is choice and commitment and showing up even when it's difficult. Sirius taught him that, and Harry passes that lesson forward. There's also the question of how the wizarding world remembers this alternate history. In canon, Harry was the boy who lived, the chosen one, the singular hero. But in this timeline, Harry is still special, but he's not alone. Sirius Black is recognized as a hero too. The man who was wrongly suspected, who raised Harry Potter, who fought in 2 wars against Voldemort. Their story together becomes legendary. Books are written. Songs are sung. Children grow up hearing about Harry Potter and his godfather Sirius Black, 2 heroes who faced darkness and won. But fame is complicated. Neither Harry nor Sirius enjoys being celebrities. They both just want to live their lives, to be normal, to be free of the constant attention. They retreat from the public eye as much as possible. Sirius buys a house somewhere quiet, maybe by the sea, where Harry visits regularly. They garden together, which is hilarious because neither of them is particularly good at it. They cook together, Sirius teaching Harry the few things he learned from Remus and his years on the run. They argue about Quidditch teams. They play with Harry's kids. They live. And isn't that the point? Isn't that what this entire alternate timeline is about? In canon, Harry's life was defined by loss and hardship. He survived, he prevailed, but at enormous cost. He lost everyone who could have been a parent to him. In this timeline, he gets something different. Not a perfect life, because perfection is impossible, but a life with love in it from the very beginning. A life where he knows he matters not because he's the chosen one, but because he's Harry. Just Harry. And that's enough. Sirius's life, too, is redeemed. In canon, he spent 12 years in Azkaban for a crime he didn't commit, escaped only to live in hiding, and died just when he and Harry were starting to build a real relationship. It's tragic and unfair and heartbreaking. But in this timeline, Sirius gets the life he deserved. He gets to raise his godson. He gets to fight for what's right without spending years imprisoned. He gets to grow old, to see Harry happy, to be the person James and Lily trusted him to be. And when he eventually dies, of old age rather than battle, he dies knowing he did right by the people he loved most. The wizarding world itself is changed by this timeline. Harry, raised with confidence and support, becomes a different kind of leader. He's not the reluctant hero who stumbles into greatness. He's someone who chooses to stand up, who fights for justice because it's right, not because he has no other choice. He reforms the Auror department, making it more accountable, less corrupt. He works on Muggle-wizard relations, trying to bridge divides that have existed for centuries. He becomes the kind of wizard who changes systems, not just fights battles. And Sirius is there, advising him, challenging him, making sure Harry never becomes complacent or accepts injustice just because it's always been that way. The epilogue, 19 years later, looks different too. King's Cross Station is still the setting. Parents are still sending their children off to Hogwarts. But the people there have changed. Harry, older now, graying at the temples but still recognizable, stands with his wife and children. And next to him is Sirius, old but still vital, still cracking jokes, still transforming into a dog to make the youngest grandchildren laugh. Ron and Hermione are there too, with their children. Neville is there, now a professor at Hogwarts, taking the train back with the students. The generation who fought the war is now watching their children grow up in the peace they created. Harry's middle child, whoever they are, is nervous about Hogwarts, worried about which house they'll be in, worried about living up to the Potter name. And Harry gives them the same advice he got in canon, that the hat takes your choice into account. But then Sirius adds something. He crouches down, looks the kid in the eye, and says, "It doesn't matter what house you're in. What matters is who you are. Your dad was brave enough to face the darkest wizard in history, and you know what? He's also brave enough to admit when he's wrong, to ask for help, to show kindness even when it's hard. That's real courage. Not the house you're in, but the choices you make every single day." The train whistle blows. The children board. And as the Hogwarts Express pulls away, Harry and Sirius stand together, watching it disappear into the distance. They don't need to speak. They've said everything that matters over the years. They just stand there, two men who survived the impossible, who built a family from the ashes of tragedy, who proved that love really is the most powerful magic of all. So what if Sirius took Harry Potter as a baby? Everything changes. Harry's childhood, his personality, his relationships, his entire journey. The war might end the same way, with Voldemort defeated and the wizarding world saved. But the path there is different. The cost is different, and most importantly, Harry is different. He's happier, healthier, more confident. He has family. He has love. And he has Sirius Black, the man who chose to be his father when he didn't have to, the man who proved that family is more than blood. That's the power of this alternate timeline. It's not just about changing plot points or preventing tragedies, though it does some of that. It's about giving Harry Potter something he never had in canon, a childhood, a real genuine childhood with someone who loved him unconditionally. And that one change, that single divergence point on the night of October 31st, 1981, ripples out to transform everything. The boy who lived becomes the boy who was loved. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important magic of all.